guys. So usually I am not in the front. Um Usually I'm not in the front talking about this, but um I really wanted to be outside in the open. I felt like I can talk more outside than inside, which I know that's some other stuff that I gotta deal with. Um, but I wanted to talk about uh, some things that have been transpiring in my life. So, usually on the holidays, I do not go to relatives' houses or homes or anything like that. And I don't try to make I don't try to make it a point to go. Um, I really don't celebrate holidays unless I have to do something like a church activity or something. I have to package up toys for kids or something like that. But for me personally, um, I don't celebrate the holidays, y'all. Like, no, none of them. I haven't been doing that for a while. Um, but also, I let people just give their free range. Another thing is that I noticed that when I went home, you know, I would either, if me going home to go celebrate the holidays, it would cost more money for me. It would just be a lot of obstacles, a lot more money to enjoy myself or things like that. I would have to take time off of work or something like that because I will always be scheduled to work. Okay, and so I just wouldn't even make it a chance to go. And then when I started getting, um, you know, my head clear and just leaning more to God, I tried to be more intentional about where I went. And this wasn't just for holidays. This was everywhere I went. Some of the things, some of the places that I could go to, and they weren't considered, I guess, bad places or anything. It just didn't rock with me anymore. And so, let me turn this way. And so I just stopped, and I focused on my goals, what I'm trying to do. Not only that, when crunch time was coming, sometimes I couldn't even. My goal was to stay afloat. It wasn't just outside goals or achieving certain things, granular or major. It was just surviving. Making sure my bills were paid and everything was okay. And so for me, it didn't make no sense to go and visit, you know, family or anyone for that nature if it's not gonna help, if it's gonna push me back from my everyday life. It's not gonna keep me stable. And so that's what I did. I stayed away and I used that time more effectively for myself. Uh, and so this year was a little bit different. I don't really even know how I was able, but I didn't have to work on Christmas Eve or Christmas Day. Hi to everyone that's out there. I didn't have to work Christmas Eve or Christmas Day. And so that gave me some time to go and visit some of my relatives. I wasn't planning on doing that. Okay, I was planning on staying at home, cleaning up my home, getting myself ready, getting yourself ready for the new year. So that's what I really was planning on doing, getting stuff ready and getting myself just ready to move around and have a good next quarter. And so that's what I was gonna do. But then I was asked to come, and I'm like, no. And then they're like, oh, you never come. And you faced with that, you feel kind of bad because you do want to see some of your relatives. Not all of them. You want to see some of them, especially the little ones, because you want them to have some kind of remembrance of you. And so um, I decided to go. Um, and I will say this: it wasn't a bad experience at all. as a matter of fact, if I didn't go through the process that I went through earlier, I would say that this was one of the best holiday celebrations that I had with my family. No one was arguing. No unnecessary stuff was happening. There was some people missing, some things like that, and I wish I could have seen some other people. But overall, things were okay. You know, there were a couple of jokes that I really didn't care for. And I had already started preparing myself for that and making my exit strategy once that arrives, but it had already de-escalated before I could even try to even go. So, um, like I said, overall, it was good. It was okay, but it gave me a revelation because when I went there, I started seeing all the changes, y'all. When I say all the changes, I mean physical changes that I could not see, and that's really weird. My neighbor's all of a sudden outside, never outside, y'all. But she has a camera, her blue camera turned towards me, so now she turned on the light. She's standing outside, but she's like on the whole other yard. So, but anywho, never. I would have never thought that. I came back and I started looking at things and how things had changed drastically. You know, the environments change. Yeah, I've been there 10. I've been there for a good amount of time, y'all. A good amount of time. Like for Christmas, it had to be over. Had to be like over 10 years. Hi, Dominic. Um, Not only that, I started to see, a lot of people had changed. You started to see the growth, things that I wanted to see in other people. I didn't get to see when I left, but when I came back, they were in their process of metamorphosis. I'll say they're changing their path to be a better person, and so that was good, but it made me reflect on if I would have stayed there, how would I be? And I know looking at myself now, I wouldn't be the person that I am had I stayed in that environment. I saw some of the people that I knew, even some of my old high school friends and people that I went up and grew up with. They were doing okay. They were happy, but some of them were stuck. Okay, and some of them asked me, like, how did you even get through this? I never knew, what you were talking about, or, things like that, until I started, going through this. How did you get through things? And they were asking me, how do you get through certain situations? And I just, have to tell them, pray, because I can't really, some of the stuff I don't even remember. Some of the questions, things they were asking me that they remembered that I said. Of course, it's like I hadn't seen them in like longer than 10 years. So I was like, I can't just make it up. Hey, pray, ask God, He'll direct you. But yeah, they were stuck. Okay. Some of the people were transitioning. A lot of those people were stuck. From childhood, from like high school, things like that. Some of them from even college. Because I was a person that when I wanted to go to school, I always wanted to give back to my community. I wanted to live in a community that I grew up in. And that's not always the best idea for certain cases, even if the environment is a healthy environment. Sometimes God develops us to do something greater and bigger than what the environment that we're surrounded at the present time can hold. Had I stayed in that area, and I grew up in Michael Jackson town, if anybody wants to know. So same place he grew up at. So if I was to stay in that area, I did get a lot of opportunities that a lot of people didn't. I did get to stay in I did get a lot of opportunities that that most people weren't getting, just because of the connections that were tied to my family and things like that. However, ordinarily, most people wouldn't have been able to do that. You wouldn't have been able to go into radio straight off the back that way. You wouldn't be able to have those connections and do things like reels and things at such a young age, and going in, unless you have connections, unless you have family ties, which I did, but for me to branch off and to get more knowledge, I had to go outside. I had to go outside. And so, and it hurt, and then I needed, when I was struggling, I was like, okay, I have family members and people who could help me. But, and there were some who couldn't, but there were a lot that were stuck. There were a lot that stuck. And had I not went through this process, she done turned on the whole light, y'all. This lady has turned on her entire light. Who does that? And that's why I keep my lights and my stuff on, y'all. I might have to make a video of my neighbor. She's a little bit, she has a post-traumatic stress syndrome. She also, she was in the military, a lot of things. So I might have to make a video of that. But sometimes you have to just keep your guard up. You want to be respectful of people, but you want to keep your guard up. And so I started noticing, had I not went through that process, had I not been able to go through the hard times, and just lean on God and just follow through, I wouldn't be where I'm at right now. I wouldn't have the strength to know that no matter what obstacle comes my way, I'm able to do it. I'm able to overcome it. Okay, we are conquerors. We're not just overcomers, we're conquerors. And that's what I learned during that time. Another thing that I learned is that, y'all, because a lot of the things were the same. There were a lot of the people that were the same. When I say the same, the same. And that's part of being stuck too. But they was happy. They was content being the same. And I saw the difference. I wasn't content. I wasn't content. I knew it was something better out for me. It was something that was calling me to greater heights. Okay, and that makes the difference. Hi, Danielle. Hi, everyone that's on there. So that made the difference. That made the difference for me. And I needed to go. There was nothing that was going to quench that thirst and that desire to seek more and to find out what is out there for me other than me developing these skills and these gifts. Okay. Just going through the process. Certain things you cannot learn by observation and just by learning through others' mistakes. Sometimes you have to go through there to gain your confidence, to gain clarity, to gain confidence, okay? In certain processes, you have to do it, okay? You can't skip it. You cannot skip it. I don't care what it is, what's going on. You can't skip certain things of the process. And that got me stronger. And that got me to a point where I was able to decipher real versus unreal, And when I say real versus unreal, real versus the fake, people who are pretending, people who are not pretending, who just going through the process. It also got me to see not only the real versus the real, or the fake versus the fake in other people, but the real versus fake in your mind. The constructs that we have in our minds that, oh, I can't do this certain thing, or oh, this person has the knowledge, this person has done it, so that's the person I need to lean on to get the knowledge. That's not always the case. Sometimes that person is in front of you to let you know that it's possible, and that might not be your avenue to go around. They just might supposed to be that flicker to say it, things are possible. So that's what I got. That's what I got from there. And when you go through your process and you fall, and you have bumps and bruises, and you go through these ups and downs in life, you're going to look like you're unstable. You're going to look like what you're doing is not working, or you're not good at it, because you're not good at it at the beginning. You're not. You're learning. But you don't understand it. Every time you're failing, you're learning, you're applying. Then you apply that knowledge and you keep going. You apply that knowledge and you keep going, okay? The goal is not to stop. And I was so happy that I was able to see that, because at that point, I was at a breaking point of not going on, not moving forward, feeling like I was even stuck. Because I'm like, is this even going to come to pass? Like, I've been just worrying so much to get all this stuff accomplished. Like, is it gonna happen? Like, there's always some kind of confine, some kind of construct that's trying to hold me back. Is it going to go? And seeing that let me know that it is, because the formula that I have been putting in is guaranteed proof. It doesn't fail once it's applied the correct way, and you keep going. And like I said, I saw a lot of people who were stuck because they didn't believe in that value system. They were stuck. Okay. The other thing is that when you are away from situations or things, when you are close up from things to things or issue or things like that, you sometimes you think emotionally, and you can sometimes lose out on a greater picture of what God is trying to show you instead of reacting. Okay? Instead of reacting. Okay? When I was in that area, it was so many obstacles that were coming. It was so many, everybody got an issue, and it felt like, I felt like I was obligated to help. Now, sometimes it was a lot of times that people were looking for me to help, and other times I felt so compelled to help because it was pulling on my heartstrings. And when I got out and I wasn't able, when I got away from that scenario and that environment, and I was able to pull back and see things for what they are, I started seeing that some of the issues, once I got the full knowledge of the issues and the reasons behind it, they didn't pull or compel me so much. A lot of the issues that we have in life as human beings come because we are not acknowledging a lot of things that we are capable of removing out of our life, or altering or changing to make the outcome better. For example, okay, if you go to, and this is a live situation that I have with an actual person, not in my family, but somebody that I know. Okay, you have a relative, right? And they, we all have like fixed incomes, no matter what your income is, but it's very limited. They have limited resources to do extracurricular activities, but they are going to the bar and the club every day. And now they're faced with being 2 months behind on their rent, So they know that you go to work every day. Not only you go to work every day, you got multiple jobs. You busting your butt, okay? They know that. So what do? They come and ask you. And you feel so compelled to help them because, like, oh my goodness, if they're out, they got kids, especially if they got kids, they just pull on your heartstrings. Or they young, what are they going to do, Or you like, okay, you got to help them, or they, they're going to be messed up. So you decide if they get put up, you can't help them, they can move in with you. And you're going to help them, or you're going to help them try to pay their rent. And it's like, that might help for a little bit, but guess what? They didn't learn a lesson, because usually when people have those issues, they have them again. They have them again and again and again and again. It's very rare that pattern doesn't repeat itself some way. And if it doesn't repeat itself in the rent, which usually it does, because it's usually the same pattern, it'll go somewhere else. Maybe the electric bill, maybe car insurance, maybe something else that's very important. Okay. And I would be in those situations where I would feel so compelled to do that. And it got to a point where, it felt like it was, appreciated the first time. The second time, it was like, okay, I know this person is solid. Then the third time, it's like, okay, why is this happening? You still do it. They assume after that, they assume for you to do it over and over and over again, not understanding the sacrifices that you had to make in order to cover their ends on that outcome. And then you ask them, hey, well, maybe we should think about better strategies of financial planning. Maybe we should talk about what you're doing with your finances. Maybe we can set up a plan where you can be able to be you can have the things that you want and still be able to take care of the duties that you have to do to take care of yourself and your family. And they will get mad. They will get mad and not want to even have that conversation with you. How dare you try to go into their private life and tell them that they're not, responsible, which is clearly showing that they're not, but they can take your resources, So I was in those kind of situations. And I know a lot of people are in those situations like that, too. And sometimes when you're constantly in that cycle, when there are always emergencies, and sometimes it was emergencies for real because it was so many of us, but when you're in that constant cycle of that, it can drain you. It can drain you, especially if you're the person that is working on financial stability. It can drain you. It can pull you down. Um, it can take a lot out of you. And so that's what was happening to me. I would see that a lot, even when I'm in my adult life, in a relationship and helping others. They're like, oh yeah, help family, this and that, and people around you. You don't want to forget the people, and it's like, okay, you feel a little guilt of, yeah, okay, and I want people to help me because there are some people who genuinely helped me in my time of need, when I didn't have anything, or when I was dealing with financial issues and had to deal with financial maintenance and things like that, that I wouldn't want to leave anyone hanging, no matter what's going on. But I begin to realize that some people don't want help. Some people don't want help. And as a matter of fact, not only do they don't want help, they don't want you to get better. They don't care about you, you know, um, working and doing all those jobs, and they feel like they're obligated to have your funds. They're obligated. That's the least you can do, especially if they helped you in some point in your life when you weren't sufficient. Some people are like that. Some people are genuinely like that, and they're never going to change. And if you don't take that step of pulling yourself back, if you don't take yourself out of the equation and pull yourself back and look at the situation at hand versus you know your connection to people, you can drown yourself. You can take yourself away from your goals and your aspirations. And I was able to see that. I was able to see that this time. I wouldn't have been able to see that if I was still in that environment. I would have said, oh my God, I gotta go help, I gotta go do this. It would have caused so many conflicts. I remember my relationships, it would cause a lot of conflicts. you know um yeah, it would cause a lot of conflicts because I don't care what anyone says. Even if you're helping someone, that's a burden. It's a financial burden. You might be able to help someone, but you're carrying on extra weight that you would normally not have to do. And no one's supposed to be carrying any grown, functionally able adult at all. You know, at the expense of them being negligent. Okay, they get to do, and you have to think about this. They get to do what they want to do while you doing what you don't want to do in order to get ahead, and they want to have the same outcome as you. That's not cool. Okay, some people have to deal with the consequences. Excuse me. Some people have to deal with the consequences that they made. you know and some of these habits are not just that came out of adulthood. A lot of these are traumas or phobias that you didn't learn in adolescence. That struggle thing, building up confidence, learning how to do hard things, learning resilience, learning grit, how to stick through things, how to not quit a job when you have other financial obligations and duties. When you have a family at home, you just can't get up and say, I'm going to quit and I'm just going to do this, and this is going to happen. And not expect when things go left that people are going to save you. There are a lot of people who have been or who are in domestic relationships that had this issue come about. When they felt like, okay, I'm gonna go and go with this person just because. And I'm not talking about people who decided to say, okay, we're gonna have one person work and the other person works at home and doing that. I'm not talking about this. I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about their issues, their scenarios where there were able-bodied people who could work, who had all the opportunities to learn skills and things like that, and they decided I refuse to work. I'm going to have somebody to take care of me for the rest of my life, and ended up going and partnering with somebody, and either a situation didn't fall through, situation fell through. Either it was a bad relationship turned sour, or someone just left. They became physically not able to work, and now they're stuck because they don't know any way to make a living. Okay, they don't know any way to make a living. So, and they're stuck with these issues. And not only that, they don't try because they feel like they're stuck. They're so afraid to try. So I was dealing with a lot of those people, or they just refuse. They're like, oh, I can get somebody else to take care of me, or the system will take care of me. you know and so those are the things that I was able to see. If y'all hear all this rain, it's raining, y'all. Let me show y'all. It is raining, pouring outside. So, but yeah, y'all. That's what I was able to, see with my own. Okay. All right, cool. Thank you for giving me that notification. I was able to see for my own self, and I had some time to reflect and say, what am I able to change in this scenario? Okay? That's going to help make the situation better. Am I able to make the situation better? And when I say better, not just better for them, better for me, where it's a win-win situation. Okay? Because I'll tell you this, giving your finances to somebody who don't appreciate it, don't know how to multiply it, or things like that, that's not always a win-win situation. You shouldn't always be sacrificing yourself for others. This is what I had to learn. I've always been sacrificing myself for others in order for other people to be happy, for other people to get up, come up, and it's been a continual thing. I had to learn this. I wouldn't have been able to see it from my personal life, like in my family and my close friends, had I not went through this process. Okay? And I was able to see that. So that's what I want to share with you guys. The other thing that I was able to see was that there are some people, like I said, they don't want to change, and they see that you're changing and they want to tear it down. They know it's only a matter of time that you are going to accomplish your goals and your aspirations and everything, and they don't want that to happen. And the reason why they don't want it to happen is that they done told everybody, they done told people behind your back. I was seeing this left and right, and this was revelation, because people would have conversations about things that I hadn't talked to them in years, and they would have conversations about things that I was going through, and things that I would have conversations with certain people that I still kept in connection with in my family about, I'll say private matters, because at the time it was private matters, but it wasn't something that I didn't mind speaking about later on or anything like that. But at the time it was private matters, and it gave me revelation to be like, okay, I know this person is somebody who I cannot open up to and trust, which I found out later anyway. But yeah, they don't want you to do better. They've been saying that for years. I have people that were around me that I knew for years who, always thought of me as the kid that was found in a trash can. They always thought of me as that person that was going to always struggle because I had a hard start out in life, which was to no fault of mine. But when that didn't add up, especially when they had people who had kids that were around my age, they would do it. They would try to go around, try to humiliate me, try to downplay my accomplishments, or try to act as if I was less than, try to use things that would impair me on learning or something like that, to think that I couldn't I couldn't do things or accomplish things to the extent of their loved ones. or the people that they were close to, the people that they thought were that they deemed as higher than me. And when that didn't work, when that didn't happen, they had to come up with something else. When they say, oh yeah, I wasn't smart enough to do things, and then I'm in the newspaper, I'm going out of the country for my education and my knowledge, the stuff that I wanted to do. Y'all, I gotta go get inside, y'all, because it is raining a little harder. So I don't know why that came that way. But yeah, I don't know. I should have probably sat right there. But anyhow, I'm gonna go and say it. And so I was having those issues, y'all. I was having those issues so much that it kind of, because if they couldn't find me with education, they would get out of their way. They would go out of their way, excuse me. They would go out of their way and say, okay, now I'm fast. And not to say that that's not, that couldn't happen. Oh, she's boy crazy. She's this, she's that. You got to watch out for her and things like that. Not to say that couldn't happen, but I was definitely a person that worried about education a lot for myself. And so I didn't have any time. Education was actually my relief. If anything, education was my relief and my escape from what I was surrounded in my environment. Okay. Ooh wee. Oh, she turned off the light, y'all. I looked through the peephole and I see my neighbor done turned off her light, so she was sitting there watching. Weirdo, just weird. But yeah, that's a whole nother story. But yeah, like it didn't work, and they would come after time and time again with extra stuff. If I couldn't be fast, then I had to be a thief. If I wasn't a thief, I was a streetwalker, y'all. I remember one time. And this was when my mom was having an issue, a mental episode. But people started running with that. There was some people that were in my church that ran with that, like, well, yeah, their own family members said that they was doing this and doing that, knowing doggone well I wasn't doing that. But in reality, their relatives were. In reality, their kids were. And then they didn't want to do that. They didn't want to, when it came up to surface, they wanted people to, pray for them when they had issues. But if it was me, oh no. So I would have those scenarios, y'all. I would have those scenarios like crazy. Thank y'all for letting me come on in and getting situated over here. Give me 1 second. Okay, y'all. Boom. So yeah, that's what I dealt with, y'all. That's exactly what I dealt with. And I learned during that process is that because you can't fight everyone. I just kept my head down and did what I love, because I had so many goals. There was so many things that I wanted to do, and I learned through that process, after a while, they had no other choice but to respect me. They had no other choice but to, or they would look foolish. There were some people who didn't want to, but they looked foolish. People who already knew, okay, that's a fool. That's a fool. This girl is not doing this. This girl is, got some talent. She really wants to do good. And so that was the thing that I really, that really hit home for me during this visit. There were some people that assumed, who knew more about me than I thought, who was still keeping tabs, but they weren't wishing the best for me. And there were people who just did not want to see me succeed. Okay? They didn't want to see me succeed. Okay? And like I said, when I went there, it wasn't a bad visit or anything like that. It wasn't bad at all. As a matter of fact, like I told you, it was one of the best ones that I had, because it was respect there, respect shown. You know, no one's verbally saying anything. No one's physically doing, you know, trying to harm people or say anything. It was very calm. But it showed me the growth that I had. And it let me know that even though I am not at the spot that I want to be at, by golly, I am not at the position that I was before. And for that, I am grateful for. For that, I am so grateful for, okay? Yeah. Oh, the other thing. During this process, I have been working on um, emotional stability and regulating my emotions. And it is a real thing when you're dealing with regulating your emotions. It's not just your breathing, it's how you respond to reactions in everyday life. How do you respond to situations? Regulating your emotions is the actual thing that some people go to school for, to train other people. Some people learn it naturally and they go train other under others, but it is a scientific process. A lot of people do go to school for this, to learn how to regulate, how to reset, and understanding how to regulate a person's emotions, because it helps with your nervous system and how you respond and react to certain stimuli in the environment, okay? And so I've been in this constant phase of that, okay? Because once you get a hold of your emotions and regulating your emotions, okay? Because people will try to manipulate you to do things dealing on your emotions. You know how they say, if you have control over those who have control over your emotions have control over you. You know, that's how you'll see a lot of people when they're dealing with addictions, shopping addiction, alcohol addiction, things like that. It's dealing with emotions, emotional regulation. Okay. Okay. Hi to everyone that's in there. And so, those were some of the things that I got from that. And I understood, like, regulating your emotions could help you change the trajectory of your life, and understanding that you are in control of the things that you can change, and don't take on other people's chance to change the things that they don't like about themselves, okay? We all have a choice in life. We all have a choice, okay? Some of the choices are limited, but we all have a choice. And you have to understand, what are you going to do right then? What are the choices that I have right now that can make my life better? It's not always the grandiose things. It's the small things, okay? And so I started seeing that, and I started acknowledging that I am walking, even though I'm not perfect. I've messed up a lot of times. There are a lot of things that I have done for myself, a lot of things that I have had the opportunity to work on to make myself better, and to do better, physically, mentally, and spiritually, okay? I've done to get better. And also to know that, not to judge people on their journey, on whatever journey that they're going on, but understand that I am in control of me, and I have to always, not sometimes, always, okay? Because this was my issue, always, every single day, every single minute, every single step. Focus on what is going to be best for me, okay? And that's not saying it in a selfish way, me, but putting myself in self-preservation is very important on the trajectory of my life, and success in the future, in the present and in the future, okay? Just like in when I was a flight attendant, they tell you to put your mask on We was always instructed to put our mask on, and we said that in the announcements before we helped anyone else. They used to go through scenarios, and we used to be like, why are they going through scenarios like this? And they'd be like, well, if this is a baby or elderly person, a baby or elderly person, who would you, and yourself, who would you put the mask on first? And most people would say the baby or the elderly person, because and the thing is you can't do that. Because the first person you should do, if you're going to be the helper, is to protect yourself. You can't help others until you help yourself. Okay? If you're helping others before you help yourself, you are taking away energy and life from yourself, and you are being a thief and a robber. I didn't even understand that, but that is so true. Because now you're taking away the energy that God gave them to help themselves, help the people the ones that need help, and you're taking away from something that you need for yourself. So now you're helping them, and they don't even have the skills to maintain or to do the skills to help themselves, or to know what to do when this situation arises and comes again, and to maintain health. And now you weaken yourself. So now you have the skills to do it, but you don't have the resources to do it. Okay? And I had to learn that. I had to learn that for myself, not only dealing with myself and that situation, but dealing with myself and dealing with my mom, dealing with stuff with my other close relatives, dealing with myself and my friends. Okay, and that's a whole nother story. Dealing with myself and my job and the people that I work with. Okay, me and my dog. Okay. You have to take care of yourself first before you help anyone else. Okay? And truth be told, a lot of people play weak and play dumb because they know that you're going to come and save the day, and they know that you could do it better than them. Or they're too afraid, or they're too scared, or they want to use their energy to do something else. They want to use their resources. Don't let it be money, because there's some people who, oh crap, about that light bill. You go over there like, okay, you don't want the kids or somebody in the dark or something. And they go and use that same money that they already had the money. Okay, they done asked the money from 3 people, and they got all this support around them. They people boom, 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 and you know what they do? Instead of applying it to what they owe and future balances ahead or something else that's gonna help them get ahead, they're gonna use, I'm gonna use part of this, or I'm gonna ask somebody else to get another part, only pay half, or don't pay that at all, and use it to go fund, because now I got money right here and I could just wait for the next check, and they waiting for the next income or source of supply that they have, because somebody else can pay for my funding and my habits while they, going on about themselves. So these are the situations that I had to learn from. This is the things that I witnessed and I had to learn for, and I was able to see clear as day. I was able to see clear as day. Okay. And I said, some of these people don't want, and some of these people will do it on purpose just because they want you to be stuck. And they know that if you keep helping them, you don't have time to focus on yourself and use the energy to manifest and promote yourself and to get better. Okay. All right. Because every time you say yes to something, you are saying no to something. Okay. Every time you're saying yes to something, you're saying no to something. And so there, and a lot of people know that, and they want to get you distracted. They feel like they are distracted. They don't want to do the work to get themselves back in line, or they think that they've gone too far off the radar. The things they want to do. Some people know their time is up for doing certain things. They could do better in other places, but they don't care about that. They just want to drag you down. Okay, and you have to understand, you have to know that. And that was something that I learned going on this trip. The other thing that I learned is that some people like you for where you were at. I had a lot of fun with the people that I shared the time with. I did. But I noticed that when I explained or talked about other things, I had to be regulated because I couldn't share a lot of the things that were going on with me, because when I did, they would shut down or change the subject. And they would ask me what was going on, but they would shut down and change the subject. And I would see that would be too much for them, or they just didn't believe me, They're like, who are you? And so I was okay with that. I would rather let that be okay. And so this is what brings me to why I make this video. Okay. When you don't know these things, you can often share a lot of information with people who are not ready to receive what you have, or who want to scatter or diminish you because you're going in a direction that's contrary to what they believe that you should go into. Okay? It's contrary to what they believe you should go into. Doesn't mean that you're not equipped to do some things, or you shouldn't go into a arena that you want to go into, or you've been led to go into. No. It's just letting you know where people are at. Okay? And when you know this, you can protect yourself. You can maneuver, and you can go into ways where you're creating win-win situations for you as well as that person. You know, you don't want to disrupt someone else's flow of life because you're having a change. That's what I had to repent from too, because when God was changing me, a lot of these people, yes, they were seeing a change around. And sometimes God shows people, you know, other people's process. Sometimes he hides you in plain sight in front of these people because they're not ready to grow. And your process is your process. The reason why they're not grasping it is because it was created for you. It wasn't created for them. You know, although you love these people and you care for them, the mold that God is shaping you in, it wasn't created for them. It was not created for them at all. We all have a purpose and a destiny to fulfill on this earth. You know, whether people can believe it as big or small, because some of the things that people deem as small are some of the greatest things that are going to be known in history to do. You know, shedding light in a world of darkness. People think that is just, you know, a easy thing to do. That's not. You know, shifting the atmosphere, moving the energy, letting people know that you can still make it, you can still overcome, giving a smile to some people. Sometimes you walking up and you going through your trials and your tests, and people know that you went through some stuff, and they still see you go every single day. They never heard a word from you. They know the attacks that you went through, even the attacks that you don't know. I've had people come to me who knew that I went through some attacks that I didn't even know that I went through. And they had respect for me, and it helped them, motivate them to get up and go through on with their day and be better and to keep fighting their fight. Okay. I never knew some of the texts. I will never know some of them. I will never know some of the texts that I went through, but there are some people out here who know, you know, and that encouraged them. You're like, no, you okay. Like this, you motivated me. And so you have to remember that your process is your process, and you have to learn how to work it, and how to go through it, you know, diligently. Ask God to help you to go through it diligently, that you don't, and I won't say hurt anybody, because sometimes some people do need to be hurt. Because a lot of the times that I felt like I was being hurt, it was the best thing that ever happened to me. It opened my eyes to see a lot of things that I needed to work on, and a lot of things that I thought were there but wasn't there. Like it opens your eyes a lot. Okay, what's meant for you, supposedly your harm, will always be turned for your good every single time. Every single time. Okay. It's just a process. So that's what I had to understand, and I got into, and I learned, and I'm continuously learning. And when you see that process, you're able to maneuver and navigate your life into a way where you can be free, and you take the limits off of, I don't know what that was. Take the limits off of other people. You take the limits off of other people, letting them to go through their process and be free from judgment and ridicule, whatever process that they are going through. Okay? The same way that you want your respect to go through your process, same way you should let other people go through their process. and not be so quick to have a judgmental demeanor. When I say judgmental, I mean putting someone down for the decisions they're making. I'm not saying not judgmental as to this is not a route that I want to go. I want to navigate somewhere else, because listen, we're supposed to judge things that are not right for us, not right by us. And that's gonna take us out of the will of God. We're supposed to do that. But not being so judgmental on people's process and progress, because you don't know who God has his hands on. Okay. And just because God is allowing you to have your process at this moment, you might just show a flicker and they're able to get that flicker years later, and they can move on with their process. And God probably had their hand on them a while ago, and now he's opening them up when you were open up. The same way that happened to you. There had to be years ago where I seen flickers of hope from other people, and they were having their process, and they were trying to, awaken me and do all this other stuff. And I was closed. I wasn't ready. Okay. And so when you know this, you're able to maneuver and navigate and create better scenarios and better environments for you to thrive, to live and thrive in, and better scenarios for them to thrive in, and where you can have a happy place. Now, sometimes you do have to, cut off and move around, but you don't have to disrupt the environment that they're in, and vice versa. Okay. All right. Because we all live in a world of choice. Yeah. Some choice. Yeah. So that's what I wanted to share with you guys. So hopefully that helps you guys on your process, and you guys keeping up with what I have going on. I am still working. I am still working in my business. I still am working on the sanctuary for people with mental disabilities and things like that. So I will keep you guys posted. Thank you guys. Hopefully something I said or done will help you on your journey. Please stay tuned to Journey to Jerusalem, y'all. Bye.